There are dozens of AI models out there right now, like Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, LLaMA, Qwen, Mistral, and the list goes on, and there are new ones every single month. And if you don't know how each model works and why they matter, you won't be able to effectively use modern day AI. So, welcome to section 2. Last week was about how AI works fundamentally, but now you're going to understand how to use it. We'll start with the AI landscape and what models are available to you right now, and we're going to tell you what models are good for what. In one of the earlier videos, we discussed proprietary versus open source models, but we went very briefly over what they were. In this video, we're going to go a little bit deeper into what they actually are. Models like Anthropic's Claude, OpenAI's GPT, and Google's Gemini are referred to as proprietary or closed source models. You can use them by paying per use or using them through chatbots, but you can't look into their internal structure, and you can't modify this internal structure, and you can't run them on your own computer. Open source means that the model's internal structure or its weights are public. This includes Meta's LLaMA, Mistral, Alibaba's Qwen, DeepSeek. You can download them and you can run them on your own computer. You can modify them and you can build them however you want, and you're not feed for using them on your own computer. But you are feed if you are using it on a computer and you need to use some extra computational units like a GPU. But we'll talk more about that in section 4. So, if there are free models out there, why would anyone ever pay for using proprietary models? This is because the best models are proprietary, like the popular ones that you use like ChatGPT and Claude. These ones outperform open source models in almost every single way. Just because closed source models are better than open source models on average doesn't mean that open source models are terrible. Like when DeepSeek released its R1 reasoning model, it shocked everyone because it was able to almost match the performance of these proprietary models with a fraction of the resources. So open source is catching up, and it's not a bad thing to use. So, if you want the best results today, you should use proprietary models. But there are times where you use open source models because maybe you want to fine-tune the model to act a certain way, like we talked before about fine-tuning. Or you want to do something else that involves editing the model's weights. And if privacy is critical, and your data can't leave your servers, open source might be your only option because closed source models can sometimes leak data or they can be unsafe to use if you're using very confidential data. Let's start with Anthropic. Anthropic was founded in 2021 by two individuals who left OpenAI because they wanted to focus more on AI safety, and their approach is called constitutional AI. Instead of training models on human feedback, they give the model a set of principles and they use these principles to evaluate its own outputs against them. So the model is kind of evaluating itself instead of humans having to evaluate them. And the result is that the models tend to be more careful, more honest, and less likely to go off the rails. Some of Claude's strengths are that it's able to analyze long documents, it's able to code, and it's able to do enterprise work. So if you need to analyze a huge document for work or you need to write some code, Claude is usually the move. And Claude Code is their agentic coding tool, which can work autonomously from your terminal, and this saves a lot of time when coding. And they also pioneered MCP, which is Model Context Protocol, and we'll cover more of this in week 3. But it's becoming the standard for connecting AI to external tools, which is important in the development of agentic AI. And some models are Opus 4.8, which is fairly new. It released about maybe 5-6 days ago. And it's great for coding, it's great for when you need to do the most complex tasks you have. While Sonnet 4.6, it's best for everyday work, and it has a great balance of speed and quality. And Haiku 4.5 is the fastest, cheap option, and even though it can be a little bit less quality compared to the other two models, it's very fast, and it's great for users who don't have a premium subscription. And Mythos is their final reasoning model and is currently not public, as you remember from a few videos back. Next, we have OpenAI. This is the big one that everyone knew at first. Although it was founded in 2015, it became really popular in November of 2022 because they created ChatGPT, and this kicked off the entire AI era to the public. ChatGPT has the biggest user base because everyone knows them. Even though Claude has been more popular lately, ChatGPT was always the big one at first. And it's able to connect with most third-party integrations, and it's the most mature API. If you're building an AI product and you want the most documentation and the most community support because you're just beginning, which is likely for you, then OpenAI's ecosystem is the deepest and easiest to use. GPT 5.5 is one of their latest, and it's stronger with reasoning, and it can also handle text, images, and audio in one model. And GPT Image 2 is their image generator, and Whisper does speech to text, and it's actually open source. Similar to Anthropic, OpenAI has their own coding agent called Codex, and this is often in competition with Claude Code. In the next video, we'll go deeper into these two as practical examples so you can see how they actually work, because all I've done right now is just mention it and talk about it, but you're probably wondering how it actually works. They also have something called Operator, which is a browser agent that can navigate through websites, fill out forms, and complete tasks for you. And Claude has a similar thing called computer use. One of OpenAI's strengths is that they have a tool for basically everything. But their weakness is that they've moved away from their perspective of open source because they originally had a mission of staying open source and now everything is closed source. So, Google. Two of the most important AI research labs, Google Brain and DeepMind, merged to create Gemini. And DeepMind is very advanced in the AI world. They create some applications called AlphaGo and AlphaFold. You don't have to know about those yet. I'll cover those later. But these are very powerful. And Gemini's superpower is its ability to be integrated with almost everything. If you search something simple on the web, you can see that you get an AI overview. And now it's built into Gmail, Google Docs, Sheets, Search, and Android. If you're in the Google ecosystem, Gemini is built in almost everywhere. You don't even need to go to a separate app, it's just there. One of Gemini's strengths is its multimodal abilities. It can create text, images, and video, and if you remember a few videos ago, we used Gemini to create a video. It's also integrated with almost every search bar like we talked about before, and it has a pretty massive context window. Some models from Google include Gemini 3.1 Pro, 3.5 Flash, they have Nano Banana for image generation, right now which is on version 2, and they have Gemma, which is an open source model, meaning that anyone can modify these weights. They also have an ADK, which is an agent development kit, and this is used to create AI agents, and we'll cover more on AI agents in sections 3 and 5. Now that we've covered the big 3 proprietary models, let's talk about some open source models. Let's start with Meta's LLaMA. It has 4.405 billion parameters. It's completely free. Anyone can download it, run it, and modify it. Right now, LLaMA probably has the biggest open source AI community in the world. Next, we have Mistral. It was created in France. It's the European champion. Mistral Large competes with GPT-4 on a lot of benchmarks because they're pretty strong at multilingual tasks. So if you're working in French, German, Spanish, Mistral is the model that you're looking for. Next is DeepSeek. This is from China. This one made huge headlines. Because of their R1 reasoning model, it matched top proprietary models in math and coding benchmarks, and they built it for a very small amount of money compared to what these big proprietary models use. This forced the industry to rethink how much money is needed to create a great model. Lastly, we have Alibaba's Qwen. It's pretty strong in multilingual tasks, and it's particularly good for Asian languages, and it's fully open source, but it's more popular in Asia. So the common thread is that open source isn't really second tier anymore. These models are real competitors to proprietary models, and they're best for use cases where data privacy matters, and you need to run them on your own computer and your own infrastructure. But proprietary models do beat these open source models in a lot of tasks, and the chances are, unless you have availability to some sort of compute like a GPU, you're probably going to use proprietary models through APIs, which we'll learn more about in week 3. So a lot of these models make big claims about how well they perform, but how do you actually tell which one is better? That's why you use benchmarks. But there's a lot of different benchmarks that are used to test different things. But here are the main ones that actually matter. Let's talk about MMLU. This is used as a general knowledge benchmark. It tests AI on a bunch of subjects to see how well it performs in general. And is useful as a broad baseline, but for top performing models, it doesn't really differentiate much because most of them perform above 90%. So it's hard to tell them apart because they perform so similarly. Next, we have Human Eval/SWE Bench, and it's used for coding evaluation. Human Eval tests whether the model can write correct functions, and SWE Bench tests whether it can fix bugs in real time with real GitHub repos. So if you cared about coding, you would look at these benchmarks to see which models are top performing in this. Next is GPQA, which tests on PhD level science questions. And it's hard enough that experts tend to struggle with it, which is why reasoning models tend to perform better on these types of benchmarks. Next is ARC-AGI, novel reasoning. Problems that require some generalization and not just pattern matching on things that the model might have seen in training, but something that it's never seen before. this is what this tests. So reasoning models would also perform best here. Next, let's talk about the chatbot arena. This is much different from the other benchmarks. Instead of having to take a test, what you do is that you have a real human chat with two different models side by side. It doesn't know which models it's chatting with, and it votes on the one that responds best. This one is so much different because it goes through real human responses so that it can find real human preferences on models. The other two benchmarks, which is the RAG benchmark and truthful QA, we'll talk about more in section 3, because that's when we'll start to talk about RAG and safety. Some advice: don't just pick the model that performs best generally, because Claude, GPT, and Gemini often trade places on the ones that are first place for all these benchmarks. So the real question you should ask is which model works best for your specific use case, and then try those models. The benchmarks just tell you the ones that are worth trying, but you shouldn't always pick the one that's number one. That's the basic landscape. Anthropic, OpenAI, Google are on the proprietary side, while Meta, Mistral, and DeepSeek and Qwen are open source. And now you know how to compare them. In the next video, we'll probably start going through demos of different models that I've already talked about. And I'll go through Claude Code, I'll go through Codex, and you'll learn how these models actually work in real time.